Welcome to our overview of inclusionary practices for the Bainbridge Island School District. Together with the demonstration sites at the University of Washington Herring Center for Inclusive Education, Bainbridge will be highlighting Woodward Middle School's journey to developing stronger inclusionary practices with a concentration on reducing restraint and eliminating isolation. Before we begin our presentation today, I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. The University of Washington acknowledges that we exist on the lands and the waters of the first people of Seattle, Lushootseed-speaking peoples, the Duwamish and Coast Salish people. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the many Indigenous people who still thrive in this place, alive and strong. We would also like to acknowledge that our highlighted school and district are situated within ancestral territory of the people of the clear salt water, the Suquamish people, who live in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's central Salish Sea, as they have for thousands of years. We'd now like to put a little bit of context to our partnership. The Herring Center at the University of Washington is contracted by OSPI and is a member of the Inclusionary Practices Technical Assistance Network, or the IPTN. The IPTN is an intentional collective of technical assistance and support providers working together in partnership with OSPI and West Ed to increase inclusionary practices across Washington State. The IPTN envisions a future where every student in Washington State has improved access to rigorous and standard-based instruction and improved post-secondary outcomes based on their strengths, preferences, goals, and needs. The IPTN worked to disrupt segregated systems and reduce exclusionary practices across Washington State schools. Its focus is on addressing inequities to improve outcomes for students specifically with intellectual and developmental disabilities and Black students eligible for special education services. Since its launch in 2019, and originally called the Inclusionary Practices Project, the IPTN has evolved to address systemic barriers that exclude these students from general education. State data continues to reveal inequities, with these students disproportionately excluded from inclusive settings. The UW Herring Center's work within the IPTN is committed to reducing restraint and isolation, expanding inclusive early learning programs, and promoting inclusive and equitable educational environments statewide. And we do this by continuing to focus on highlighting inclusionary practices through partnerships with districts and featured schools. And these schools have graciously offered to share their journeys and invite visitors for a transformational visit experience. Although all of our demonstration site partners feature inclusionary practices, we now have two categories of demonstration sites. The first is the continuation of the inclusionary practices, or IP demo sites. And then in the spring of 2023, we were pleased to welcome districts and sites highlighting practices to reduce restraint and eliminate isolation, or RREI demo sites. In total, we support 21 demonstration sites across 16 districts. Each demonstration site has their own journey and own story to tell. Thus, high leverage moves align to individual school cultures and priorities. And for schools to have lasting effects on district scale and sustainability are critical. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Annalisa Sanchez, the Director of Student Services for the Bainbridge Island School District. She's here today with a team of educators from Woodward Middle School on Bainbridge Island. Annalisa, I'll turn it over to you and your Woodward team.
Great, thank you, Shane. We are so excited to be here. Bainbridge Island School District has 2 demonstration sites through the RREI grant, and I'm really grateful. Woodward Middle School team here with me today, and they will be taking over the presentation and sharing the amazing work that they do. Our district as a whole is really committed to reducing restraint and eliminating isolation with a really strong focus on what are our social, emotional, behavioral MTSS supports for all students, and how does that fit into special education supports as well. And so my team today will be highlighting this in their building and the amazing work they're doing. So I'll do some introductions and then they'll take turns sharing with you today. So we have Cherry Jackson, one of our special education teachers who focuses on social emotional learning. There I am on the second picture. Then we have Wendy Kozida, our math teacher at Woodward, Sue Constant, one of our 2 counselors at Woodward, Danielle Warman, our associate principal, and then Jenny Gillette is one of our amazing paraeducators at Woodward. I realize I'm saying the word amazing a lot, but that is how I feel about this team. And so I will pass it over to them.
All right, well, like Annalisa said, I'm Danielle Warman, the associate principal. I am brand new to Woodward this year, and it's been such an amazing opportunity to get to know this incredible school, and I am so excited to tell you all about it. So behind me is a very diverse group with a lot of experience, and also each of them has their own journey for how long they've been at Woodward, and hopefully they can jump in at any point and add to the conversation, but you'll get to hear from each of them today. And we are hoping to give you a little tiny glimpse into 5 inclusionary practices that we believe have helped us reduce isolation and restraint for students, and that include our students and welcome them at Woodward Middle School. And those are clear student support systems, fostering a positive and inclusive school culture, intentional social and emotional learning, community involvement, and instructional practices. And on the screen right there, you'll see our 3 core values that Sue Constant, will talk a little bit more about in a few minutes. Before we jump into those inclusionary practices, quick little glimpse of some data for you. This is based on last year's OSPI report card, and we had 504 students last year, which is different than the 504 students with a 504 plan. We found that a little bit confusing when we saw the data earlier. So we do have a large percentage of students who have a 504 plan at Woodward Middle School, 21%. And we have about 10% of students with an IEP. And as you can see, we also have a very small number of students that are English language learners and that qualify for McKinney-Vento services. We have several programs, special education programs, 1 resource room, 1 social emotional learning resource room, and an extended resource room. And throughout our conversation today, you'll learn a little bit more about those programs. Okay, so it's important to take a look back. And for me as a new person in the building, it was actually really helpful for me to do a little history digging into why we began to look at the inclusionary practices in this building. And it was really reflective or reminiscent of other buildings that I've been in with some similar need to really revamp and look at our practices. Number 1, we believe that all students should be welcomed, known, and valued. And number 2, the equity in the schools and the core value of inclusivity is shared by our community here on Bainbridge Island. And that accountability is engaged at the community and parent level. In fact, I was just at a school board meeting earlier this week, and it was a really aha moment for me because every single parent and community member who signed up to speak at the school board meeting was specifically there to talk about inclusion for students and all students, our marginalized community, and also students that may have been experiencing certain feelings recently and based on political events that have happened, students on our island who are new to the island, who are seeking resources from the wide variety of resources available here. And it was really amazing to see that accountability from the community level. The pandemic also brought out inequities in our systems, as it may have done in your own schools. And then, of course, data. So data drives our decision making, and data for us identified that there was inequities, especially in discipline for boys and students of color receiving special services. Okay, so the Bainbridge Island School District has made some really high leverage moves that have really contributed to the foundation of our work in reducing restraint and eliminating isolation. So just briefly talk about those. The first thing that really came to my mind when I was reflecting on this was the support from the district in providing all staff training. For example, this summer, the entire school district staff started out with a training on executive functioning in the classroom. And it was a great opportunity for us all to come together and align values around the support for students. Another thing that has driven the reduction of restraint and isolation is the specific policies around this in the district. And to go back a little bit in the history of where that has come from, the staff in Bainbridge Island School District used right response, which you may be familiar with, and that was the strategies essentially used to help prevent de-escalation or enhance de-escalation, I should say. And there was a conversation and work and data that really showed that there maybe needs to be some change around. District moved to a program called Safety Care, which really focuses on more proactive supports and de-escalation strategies. And in addition to that, whenever there is a staff training around supporting students in the classroom, specifically around things that could involve isolation and restraint, it always starts out with the policy around isolation and restraint. And so it's a focus on the state law and also the importance of all staff consistently following the values of not using isolation or restraint unless it's a dire or extreme harm situation. And anyone can jump in if I'm not saying any of that correctly. The other thing that's important to know is that the idea of just providing training for just special education staff moved out of that lens and actually went to providing training for all staff. So in the last few years, all staff have been given access to proactive behavior supports and de-escalation strategies. The other thing I thought was really important to point out, and for me as a new person, I've really felt this as a high leverage move and how it impacts students, was really just the idea of structuring the building for what is developmentally appropriate, the times of the day and where students are. And for us, we're 7th and 8th grade school only, which is not very typical. So in Bainbridge Island School District, the 5th and 6th grade is an elementary model. And then the 7th and 8th grade is its own school. That's us, Woodward, 7th and 8th grade. We love them. They're amazing. And what's really amazing is that the school start time is actually later in the morning. It's after the elementary ages. And so adolescents at this age, we all know if you have them at home, you know that they sometimes like to get a little more sleep in the morning. But really what's been great about this model is that students are participating in clubs, activities, and opportunities to have support in the morning before school. And it's really allowing students to all be present when school starts. So our need for more interventions for school refusal or being late to school is a little bit different than what I've experienced in other places. The other thing to really highlight here is that there's a staff-directed focus on equitable change. And so you have a very small glimpse of the bigger staff here at this table, but everybody is committed to this work. And it is all modeled as a core value of the staff. It's present in the conversations that are happening with staff. It's present in the classrooms. It's just an assumed value that we all believe in this work. There's been some changes that have happened also related to that, and really just things like name changes. So where in other school districts or buildings you might hear emotional behavior disorder to talk about a behavior program, at Woodward Middle School it's called social emotional learning. And other places you might hear other names, and our students with more adaptive and functional needs are called our extended resource room. And so even just that name change, just like when we say students, IEP students versus students with an IEP, just that those small changes make such a big difference for the bigger culture. You'll hear more a little bit about our grading for equity practices in a little while, but that's a big staff buy-in for that as well. And then there's also been program structure changes to be more inclusive of students. All right, so here we go, jumping into our inclusionary practices. The first one we'll talk about is clear student support systems. And really what this is having clear systems of support for students coupled with clear staff roles. So it's not just having the systems, but also having the accountability to who is managing the systems and in charge of them and collecting the data and monitoring to make sure that they happen. I'll also point out another high leverage move that relates to our systems is that at Woodward Middle School, our counseling and psychologist staff are staffed beyond the state allocation because this is a priority in Bainbridge Island School District, and it really makes a difference for our students. This is a list of student support teams here on your screen. So we have quite a few that work together with students, and you'll hear specifically from our counselor here in just a moment to talk about how the counseling team leads a lot of this work. Before I do that, I do want to highlight though the equity committee in our building, which is staff led, and it works to help provide extra training for staff and also support for students. All right, now moving on. So I am going to take a break from talking and pass it over to our amazing counselor, who is one of two, Sue Constant.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to just start by talking a little bit about our school values. Woodward had values, but we updated them and actually found, as a staff, determined that what we wanted our school values to be were connection, integrity, and compassion. And that was about 3 years ago. And really the value work is a work in progress. What we did the first year with our values, we kind of grew upon the next year and the next year. And that's what we continue to do. How we support values, help grow values in our students is a number of ways. Number one of the first things we did is we started to develop signage that's everywhere in our building, and we're still working on some signage, just so our values are seen throughout the day by our students. We also, at the beginning of the year, did some lessons. Each year we do lessons that the homeroom teacher develops, and not develops, but delivers, just so our students know what our values are, what our expectations around those values, where values might show up during the school day. We have acknowledgement systems that has been in place for quite a while at Woodward, but really when students are showing values, ways that teachers and staff can acknowledge that. And kind of where we're working, kind of our next steps with our values is to meld it into a PBIS system where there's very clear expectations around values in different parts of the school building. And I think that will be brought up later in our presentation. So the main thing about our values is that it's a work in progress, but our staff are committed to figuring out different ways that we can teach values and develop these strengths in our students.
And I'm going to chime in really quick
Yeah.
because it just recently was Veterans Day, and we had a Veterans Day assembly where we invited 2 veterans to speak, and one of them, well, actually both of them embedded our core values in their conversation. And so they're not just hearing it from the people in the school, they're hearing it from the adults in our community as well. So it definitely gives kids a more ownership of having connection, integrity, and compassion.
Yeah. And I think that is part of the growth that we all see. The next level with our values work is how do we embed it in the classroom? How do we embed it in lessons, in all different lessons? How do we include community, which is the next slide, actually. The one thing that we've done, this is going to be our 3rd year in April, is we do something called our deep dive. And what it is it's 1 month where we are delving into our values. And how we do that is by learning about a group in our community. So the first year, our focus was senior citizens in our community. Last year, it was refugees. And because we have students for just 2 years, we're circling back to senior citizens in our community. And what the deep dive looks like is lessons that happen in the classroom. We will be talking at some point, someone will be talking about our seminar lessons, which is our social emotional learning. So there's lessons during seminar where we're learning about this population in our community. And the main thing is that we are learning about this population through the lens of our values. We bring in community groups to help kind of grow this understanding about this group in our community. And really the idea is that it's values in action. So how do we practice our values? How do we learn about this community? And it just puts a different way, besides just classroom lessons, it's another way to learn about our values in a deeper context. So that is the month of April, and it's just a way that we kind of honor our values and bring in the community as well. So. All right, so the counseling program at Woodward, these are aspects of it right now, and I'm doing a lot of talking, so if anyone wants to. So we do counseling groups at Woodward. We find our groups, our participants through a needs assessment. The main thing that we're offering right now are coping skills groups. I do 8th grade and my counseling partner does 7th grade. Those are actually happening right now. Last year I had 3 groups of 7th graders, then I moved up with 8th graders. This year I have 2. So there's a real need for, it's mostly around anxiety and depression as well. We hope to also offer a Changing Families group in the fall or in the spring. Those will probably be the groups that we offer this year, but they're about 6 to 8 week groups. And that's just part of our counseling program. We also do something called Signs of Suicide. That takes place in 7th grade, and that is an evidence-based suicide prevention program where a lesson is taught in science class, and then we meet with students based on a questionnaire that they fill out. One of the most probably impactful things I do as a school counselor is Signs of Suicide. That takes place in our district, both in 7th grade and 10th grade. And it is very impactful, and it really teaches students signs of suicide, but also how to help friends if they're worried about them. So that's one of our programs. We're part of the attendance committee where we partner with our associate principal and our attendance secretary and our school social worker, and sometimes people from the district office to make sure students are not falling through the cracks and figure out interventions for those students that are having attendance issues and struggles. So that's another thing that the school counseling program does. We oversee the student support team, and that really kind of is a process of determining students that we're worried about. And it could be social emotional, it could be academic, where teachers will get input from teachers, will kind of determine students who we then need to meet with and kind of determine an intervention plan. And that could look like there's a lot of different ways that we work with students. Sometimes it might be a parent meeting, sometimes it might be some kind of a intervention, it might be a group, but ways so students don't fall through the cracks. So that's something that we oversee. We use EduClimber as a way to track data. So one thing that's really helpful is to be able to, as students come up through the district, to see if there's been other meetings about the student and how other schools intervened. So we oversee that whole program. We do have 2 mentoring groups, and this is really coordination and collaboration with outside community groups. We have a program for 8th grade students, girls, called RGEMS, and they come in twice a month. And we have, I don't even know how many students are in RGEMS. It's around 50. And then one of our community resource officers comes in for 8th grade boys, and it's called Zach's group. So those are 2 collaboration with community members who provide mentoring groups for 8th grade students. And that's been very well received. I think there's about between 50 and 60 8th graders in each one of those groups. As counselors, we do individual check-ins, and that can be, it's kind of as needed. We go into the classrooms at the beginning of the year and teach them if you want to see a school counselor, this is what you do. And That's a big part of my week. Quite a few individual check-ins throughout the week as needed. I hope to, with my coping skills group, move that into a lunch group. I did that 8th grade a couple years ago, and it's just a place for students who want a place to go during lunch. I usually have a topic that is surrounding coping skills, and hope to move my coping skills group into that, just a 1 time a week lunch group as the year progresses. And then another big part of as school counselors, what we're kind of charged to do is to provide some kind of a career education program. And what that looks like at our school is we use Seminar, which someone will talk about at some point, which is our social emotional learning platform. And we have career lessons using a online curriculum or online platform that our district has called Career Planning or Career Planner. And we do lessons during Seminar around career exploration. And then for 7th grade, that leads into a school-wide 7th grade program called Explore, where we partner with our career education district group who provides, it's really like a career exploration day, mostly STEM, but it's a half-day program where students are going around based on what they did in Career Planner to go and investigate different career options. And then with 8th grade, the career lessons move into the high school and beyond plan, and there's a program or a training for on the high school and beyond plan. So, oh my gosh, that's a lot of what the counseling program does. It's a lot of coordination and collaboration with staff for sure. And yeah, so that's part of our program. I'm going to pass it on.
All right. So you just heard a lot of tier 1, 2, and 3 supports. And it's really, we wanted to highlight the amazing work of the counselors because the systems that they've built are really supporting all students. And it's really a lot of the work that they're doing is providing proactive strategies for students to have coping. They're providing emotional support. And so it's really contributing to the reduction of the need for restraint and isolation because students have that trusted adult, they have clear systems to support them. So our next practice is fostering a positive and inclusive school culture. And there's a lot of words on this screen, but I'm just going to quickly walk you through a few things that that I have found as a new person to the building that have really given me that, oh my gosh, moment of, wow, this is key for supporting students and providing students a safe, predictable place where they feel loved. And I really want to make sure and highlight that because it's so true. When you walk into this building as an adult, you will feel it. And one of the big aspects that I have noticed coming from a different school and other school districts was actually just our phone policy at Woodward has made a tremendous impact on the student culture. It prevents power struggles. It's basically no electronic personal devices at all when they're in the building. That includes really everything you can think of, and there is no need for power struggles with students because everybody's doing it. And over time, it started out with, some incidents, and then over time we've seen in the data that has decreased significantly. And this year, really, there's only been a handful of students who have even had their phone out at all during the school day. And students are engaging with each other, they're talking with each other, they're focused in the classrooms more, they're not distracted, they're not hearing or seeing videos that upset them that they need to then process. They're not doing the things that that I have found in other places that really contribute to making the positive culture tough.
Or creating any negative struggle within the teacher and student relationship, because so it's not there.
Right. And it's taken a lot of work that I wasn't part of. So good job, all of you, for doing that work. There's also, as you heard, there's positive reinforcement systems. Another thing I want to highlight is the adequate supervision in unstructured times. And this may seem, just assumed, but it's really been an eye-opener for me with how intentional the supervision has been thought through at Woodward Middle School. So you'll not really ever see students in a place where there's not an adult with them. And that's hallways. You'll see teachers in the hallway. It's a norm. You'll see teachers out greeting kids. You'll see them greeting them when they walk in the door, saying, "How are you? Good morning. How's your day?" And immediately grabbing the student because they're known, immediately pulling in the student if they're having a hard day. It's really incredible to see. There's also some other really great things that are fostering positive culture, such as our Wake Up Woodward, which is the student video production class does the announcements on the video. And what's really great about this is that they really include everybody. It's not limited to a small group of students. All students and all different social groups and social hierarchies are in there together giving the school announcements. It's really fun. We have natural helpers, which Wendy just got a big grant for to do in our building, which is so exciting. We have opportunities for students to have their voice heard. I want to draw your attention also to something I'm really proud of in our building, which is the gender inclusive practices, not only by all staff to make sure that students are included, but also there's literally a physical space in the building called the Ally Room for students to connect with other members of the LGBTQIA community. So there really is a sense of belonging. Clubs, tons of clubs. And since we have a later start, lots of students are participating. We're tracking that in data and lots of activities at lunch. We also, something that I've also noticed is there's really an agreement by the staff and the students that we're not going to be focusing our attention on things that cause power struggles with kids, like wearing hats or hoods or having clothing that is a certain dress code. That just is not something that we focus our attention on. And so it's also reduced students feeling like they can't just show up authentically as themselves. And that is a really big part of reducing those big incidents that could then lead to restraint and isolation. Connecting before correcting is something as a staff we worked on, that positive relationship building. The first week of school started out with staff having a secret staff spirit wear and connecting with students. And we've also been embedding restorative justice practices. So when students have student conflict, we have been really trying to engage in practices like restorative conferences. And those have been really amazing to see the positive outcomes from those. And they've been pretty effective, which is great. We also have a clear HIB policy, and we teach it to the kids explicitly multiple times a year in the classrooms. And if you walk through our building, you will see that kids can see themselves in the building. There are intentional efforts to make sure that all ethnicities and religions and gender identities and neurodivergency is represented in the hallway immediately when you walk in, and that is a present part of our school culture. And I'll just also end by saying that the staff participate in the silliness, which is so important for middle school. And it's so important to break up those mornings for kids that come in.
Yeah, we have
and
Friday music day in the
Friday,
hall.
exactly.
Yeah.
When they come in grumpy and maybe in a typical place that might lead to something that might cause a big incident, we're going to be silly with them. And the whole staff is on board with that. And it's something, it might be as silly as Miss Jackson has a pickle day and pickles in our, all kinds of things. We just be silly. So, all right, moving on. Next item. These are just some images from what I just talked about. And own policy. And I do want to draw your attention, the connection, integrity, compassion, and Olympic rings that you see in the middle are from a staff retreat, because a really important aspect of fostering a positive school culture is the fact that the staff like each other, and we really work hard to be friends with each other and to connect and collaborate. And so that was from a staff retreat from before the school year.
Yeah.
Would you agree with
Yeah.
that? Yeah. It's an important part. Kids see it. They know when we like each other. All right. So moving on, there's, as most buildings have in public school, there are special education programs, and historically, a lot of programs can be isolated from the general education setting. And specifically programs that have students that have higher adaptive or functional needs, you know, unfortunately have been isolated more from their peers. And so when we talk about reducing isolation and restraint, we're not just talking about for individual students, we're talking about the bigger school culture. And reducing isolation doesn't just mean having students be by themselves. For us, it also means that they're isolated from their peers. And so we really work hard to include all students. Wake Up Woodward, they're doing relationship building. I had a parent recently who really taught me so much, and I learned so much from them about the idea of universal design for student culture, which I hadn't thought about before. So it's looking at assemblies, it's looking at things like field trips and other things that we might, the website, things that we might just assume everybody can access. And it's made me really think can they access that? So those learning and thinking points have been great. Now I'm going to pass it on to one of our incredible, amazing para-educators. This is Jenny, and she is going to talk a little bit about that intentional, inclusive process.
Hi, my name's Jenny. I think informally before Danielle and we had this directional change with the special ed students. One of the things that we were doing that was really popular with the formerly ILC students was we had a lunch bunch group. So we had a group of kids who would voluntarily come in and have lunch with some of our higher impacted students. And that was a great experience. But now that we have this least restrictive environment, as we were thinking about this as paraeducators and how we're going to support our students in these higher stakes classes, what I've come to find just after 3 months of this is the ones who are really benefiting from this experience are the gen ed students. I have an art class with these two pretty highly impacted students, some of them nonverbal, and we're sitting at a table with the A-list hierarchy boys, and they are engaging with these students in ways that are just beautiful. And the art teacher and I are just watching them form these relationships, so much so that when the boys are hanging out with their friends in the hallways and the girls come walking by, there's high fives, there's greetings. And so their friends are being normalized to having these relationships with kids who would otherwise be in a far corner of our school. Also, what I'm seeing with these kids that our students, our ILC, our ERR students are being paired up with gen ed students in traditional classrooms with different projects. And a lot of these kids, the gen ed students, are finding ways to access their generosity and their kindness in partnering with these students that they normally wouldn't have, and that they're expanding their capacity. So I see it as just this huge shift in what the gen ed classes are experiencing and how much they're getting out of it. So that's, just one of the beautiful things that has come out of this, that these kids are part of everything that we do.
All right, moving on, inclusionary practice number 3, embedded social and emotional learning. And Sue mentioned our seminar lessons briefly, but I just wanted to let you all know that our seminar lessons are something I'm super proud of. They're really sort of a puzzle, lots of pieces put together. So we pull from all kinds of resources, and they've been developed over a long period of time. And there's different aspects, like, for example, some character strong curriculum has been pulled into there, but also student data. So students will essentially show us what they need in terms of social and emotional learning. And there's this brief snapshot picture on there. I went onto our portal and you could see the lesson that was intro to bias and then goal setting. So there's a wide diversity of topics. And even this week, we had a really amazing seminar lesson around being an upstander. And we specifically talked about members of our community who were upstanders during the Japanese exclusion, which took place on Bainbridge Island. So students are really getting this great opportunity to learn these topics with each other in our building. But I also wanted to highlight specifically our social and emotional learning program. So I'm going to hand it over to our teacher, Cherry Jackson.
So this is basically a new program that we're in our second year at Woodward. And it really just have this table. It's all about the collaboration with where our students are, what we're looking at when we're sitting at a team, if you will, and then on top of that with that IEP resource. With access to the room, you'll see that we have the SEL learning space, and then we have extended resource room, which is provided at Woodward, which is completely different, I think, than any school I've ever been into and what we have even in the district. So the social emotional space you'll see on there listed is basically just a sensory room. So it's where these students can come if they have within their IEP a true social emotional learning need or goal that we can really focus on with, again, complete collaboration of our counselors, our admin. Can't do it without our paraeducators because that's part of that team, the data that goes into that. And then our core general ed teachers because they are always general ed students first. And then we tag into that because not only do some of our students really have just goals in social emotional and working towards that, they do have some academic goals. So we want to highlight that as well because it really is a transition. We're talking about middle school. So when they're coming in, we're really working through that maturity level, where they need to be, but that vertical alignment of planning to how are they coming in? What is their true social emotional well-being? And then that transitioning of where they would like to see themselves on top of, again, the entire team and their parents. So talking about that community base going into that higher level of learning. So into the high school and then beyond. And the school, Woodward does a great job all the way through, but that's where the extended room comes into where you can tie in not just the social emotional, but their core. What else do they need besides just that organization? Is it math? Is it reading? Is it writing or spelling? And then having that separated space so that we can really work on a smaller class setting to really, again, embed these, certain students to work to have a sense of belonging in a smaller space and then gradually get into that general ed classroom if they need, or just to have a safe space to say, you know what, I really know that my anxiety is too high, or I know that this is impacting because of different outside, and they can come back down into a space that they feel comfortable as well to continue to show tremendous growth. So again, both teams have paraeducators as well, and we just continuously work on just those accommodation modifications and work as an entire team all the way across the board, which I am extremely blessed to be a part of.
All right, moving on. So thank you very much, Sherry. If you are watching this and you are planning to come to the campus, I'm really excited for you to walk into the classroom that Cherry was just describing. It's really amazing to see, and it's a lot of work. So, all right. High quality instruction is the other practice we wanted to highlight, and just because of time, I'm not going to go through this list, but really having access to having clear tier 1 interventions implemented is essential. And then we've also been working on identifying our tier 2 supports. And this is an area of growth that you'll hear from us that we're working toward. But next slide. The important thing that I wanted to highlight when we talk about high quality instruction is that high quality instruction reduces the need for behavior to be the form of communication for students to communicate their needs in the classroom. So if we are providing meaningful, relevant, high expectation with love instruction, then students, we are naturally going to see the less and less need for incidents that result in negative experiences for students when really they're just trying to communicate that they need better instruction a lot of times, right? In addition to other things, as we know. So consistent practices across the classrooms are what the Woodward staff is really, really good at. And we are working on document or writing those kind of out, but in the meantime, it's a cultural norm to have collaboration. So common practices across the building and predictable routines. For example, students know that they should be in their class, in their seat when the bell rings. That's a predictable expectation that everyone knows and follows. Grading and instructional support provides a sense of belonging for students. And then also, as I said, high quality collaboration is key in making a safe environment as well. So one key practice of high quality instruction that Woodward is doing really well, and I am so excited to highlight is the Grading for Equity journey. And so I'm going to hand it over to Wendy Cozina to tell you more about that.
Hi, Wendy Cozina, and I just have to say, between all of us, like Jenny has been in my classroom as a paraeducator. I have had Cherry students, not just 1, but also 2 years. So I teach different levels of mathematics, which is a benefit to the relationship building for kids. And so just something for you to think about as you move forward in your journey. Our math department is so lucky and fortunate enough to have common planning period, and we collaborate like no other. And so what you see is something that our math department has agreed to and researched all around grading. So if you could take a look to the next slide. If you've ever read the book Grading for Equity, this is a slide a picture in that book. And when you look at this, I share this with my parents and guardians at open house, and we talk about our grading system and how it really sets kids up for failure and not for success. So in our department, we decided to go more towards standards-based grading. So if you look here, this is kind of like before and after. So before standards-based grading, what we would do is we'd look at the student's work and say, okay, this is a 4-point question. You did it wrong. You didn't get the right answer. It's 0 points. Well, after looking at it through a different lens for Grading for Equity, what we do is go, wow, this student actually did a nice job on that very first step with distributing property. And they actually had a really good understanding of solving equations. They just made an error. So now what we do is we look at this in a different lens, and they at least get some sort of approaching the learning goal of this problem. So if you go to the next slide, what we did is we said, okay, here are the levels we want to look for in our students when we look at learning goals. So we also do little decimals because we're mathematicians, and we also want to make it to feel balanced, because our grading system, the system that we use, is an A, B, C, D model, but we try to finagle the system using standards-based grading. So we'll show you a little bit more. So here, what you're looking at is we use Google Classroom. And so this is a rubric that we use for 2 different things. So like homework rubric sample, we use that homework rubric for every homework assignment that we give. And the students are very familiar with what that looks like. And then test questions, we actually look at the test question. We'll have a learning goal that's attached to it, and we layer it based on what the learning goal was and the questions. So everything has intention behind all of the levels on the rubric that you see. So here's how we've decided that we grade in our math department. Grading is a reflection of students' level of understanding and mastery for all learning goals in each unit. So students' grades that are reported out to families, their grade is assessments only. So no homework averaged into their letter grade. But we do offer students the opportunity to edit and retake tests, because math is a building block. So we want kids to walk out with a solid foundation. So we have our policy here that you can read on your own, but we do expect students to have all of their practices done in order to be able to edit and retake tests up to 100%. So what gets recorded in the grade book? If a student, these are just things that we've talked about as a staff. So we did this presentation with our staff this year. And so we've talked a lot about a 0 versus 50% minimum. It's really hard for a student to get out of a 0. And so we talk as a staff about these things philosophically. If a student is absent the day of a test, if a student's absent for a long period of time, if they score less than a 50% on assessment, what do you do? So these are just things that we talk about collectively as an entire staff. And then what's next for us? You know, the key for us as a department is we really want to hone in on what information we want a grade to reflect, what the grades to reflect. Our department wants math grades to reflect students' math abilities and no other variables. So as I'm supporting Cherry's students and Jenny's students, we're looking at the whole picture and making accommodations as necessary. So again, like as you walk away from listening to me talk today, I want you to question your why. Your why do I use a rubric? Because I keep the bias out of my grading. I want to give students hope in doing better. That's why we allow edits and retakes. And we want to offer opportunities for students to learn and to get better.
I hope you felt inspired by that. It's really amazing to hear that sense of hope is such an important part of the culture. So briefly, our last inclusionary practice is the community involvement, and I fully understand that where we live is literally an island, so it's a bubble, but I have really done a lot of reflecting about the importance of community connection within a school and within the work that we do to improve outcomes for students. And on Bainbridge Island, there is, I call it like these sandwiches of parenting, layers and layers of adults who really care about the well-being of students. And so it's really important that we highlight that it's not just us that is doing this work. We're supported by a larger community. We're supported by partnership with our two sovereign nations that serve that have students in our school that we serve, that there are activities and opportunities for students outside of school so that they have mentors and that they have a sense of belonging somewhere. I mean, you could be you could knit, or you could ride a horse, or you could play lacrosse. It's all available to you. And that's so important for student belonging. And we are also supported by a lot of civic action funding wise as well. That actually allows us to have a tier 2 intervention in our school, that an actual class that we have for students that don't qualify for services, but who need tier 2 academic intervention. So we do have those as well. And our community also really supports early childhood education, and Bainbridge Island School District partners with the schools that serve kids under the age of 5 really early on, so that we can have them have a vertical line of support. So by the time they get to us, there's been a lot of intervention. Okay, now we're wrapping up our conversation. This is a summary for you, things that we've talked about today. We have talked about the clear student support systems, fostering a positive and inclusive school culture, intentional social and emotional learning, community involvement, and high quality practices. And we do have growth. However, these are our goals for next steps. We do need to focus on mapping out our MTSS systems. For us, they exist a lot of times in our head and not necessarily on paper. So we're working on that. We also are talking about, we're having lots of conversations about curriculum. And one of the things that's really come up is our need for more training, support, and really work around modification inside of the general education classroom. And that is so tied with that curriculum fidelity. So that's work that we have to do and that we are committed to doing as a staff. And we are also working on having a true PBIS system, which includes the data collection. So we have more opportunities to analyze where we can support students and how to support them, including a more specific discipline system. And we're also doing some really cool things like next week as a staff, we'll be doing relationship mapping, which is essentially making sure that every single student has a trusted adult in the building. And it's really, it's something we all deeply care about. And we're also working on embedding more screeners. So SEL screener, for example, is something we're working on. these are just a few of the many things that we need to do and continue growing and learning together. And we are so excited to share what we've learned with you and to learn from all of you who are watching this, and because collaboration is key. So thank you for taking the time with us today, and thank you to all of you. We can hear the bells in the background right at the right time. So thank you very much.
Well, and I want to say a very big thank you to all of the Woodward Middle School staff. You can tell just by like the breadth of the initiatives and things you have going on that feel like you have something to meet the needs of each and every one of your students, and that seems just so valuable and so important. So thank you for taking the time to put the presentation together and for sharing all of your wealth and knowledge with us. I also want to say, just as a follow-up, if you'd like to learn more, you can go to the next slide. If you'd like to learn more specifically about the Bainbridge Island School District in relation to our work, or Woodward Middle School, the links, if you're looking at the slides, are both available on this slide. And if you want just more general information on our IPP demo sites, the website link is here, as well as the QR code. And on that website, you can get more information about this webinar and other school webinars, school artifacts, and all of our tip sheets. So again, from the demonstration sites at the University of Washington Herring Center for Inclusive Education, and on behalf of the Bainbridge Island School District, thank you for joining our journey today.